Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. It was an absolute blast chatting with Jahred Gomes, frontman of Hed PE. This first aired on Wednesday, April 3rd. Let's do it. Well, in 1994, tonight's special guest formed the band Hed PE, and over the last 30 years, 30 years, man, he's already laughing. There's no question that they've become an undeniable force in the worlds of modern rock, new metal, whatever you want to call it. And 30 years into it, they're not slowing down. In December, just a couple of months ago, they released their latest album, Detox. We're celebrating the new single from that album, Waiting. And they've got a ton of shows scheduled well into the fall of this year. Frontman, founding member, mastermind, you fill in the blank, Hed PE's Jahred Gomes. Thank you so much for hanging tonight, man.
Hey, my friend, thanks for what a nice introduction, and thanks for your time, and thanks for having us in today.
Absolutely, brother. So, listen, as you kind of hear that stuff, do you let yourself kind of take a step back and reflect on what it means to be going strong 30 years into it with Hed PE?
Well, that's a good question, brother. I'll have to tell you, it's been such a grind and a hustle that it wasn't really till COVID came. And for the first time, because, being a musician and in a band, it's like anything that has happened in the past on the globe has I've been able to circumvent and still make a living, no matter what was going on in the housing industry or real estate or whatever. I'm still out there playing and getting and selling T-shirts until COVID, right? Yeah. So that was the first time I ever had to sit home. And that was the first time I really took a breath and reflected on the whole thing, to be honest. So I kind of had a good time with that. And so, I've kind of been absorbing it all in,
Yeah, for sure, man. Isn't it crazy that all of a sudden our lives are we have that moment, and much longer than a moment, but that time of COVID where there was the before time and now the after time. And even as we talk about new music, there's no way to talk about it without in some way referencing, well, yeah, we wrote some of these songs during COVID or this or that, man. It's just, it's wild.
Dude, you just reminded me of Rick and Morty with the before and the after time. Dude, you know what? Such just a crossroads in my entire life. What you're saying I can't overstate how COVID was just you're saying a before and an after, dude. I'm still recovering from it, to be honest, in all different parts of my life,
Yeah, no, I get that, man.
It was just a huge thing, it was massive to not work for 3 years. It took a toll on me. I started drinking too much red wine for sure during that time. I'm recovering from that. That's why the record's called Detox. Nice segue, but
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, man. So congrats on Detox, your latest record. Came out in December. Talking about going 30 years strong. I'm not sure if my math is right here, but is this album 14 for Hed PE?
I would have to sit down and really go on Google and
it's crazy. No. Yeah.
I've definitely lost track around 10 or 11. But this one, hey, bro, this one came out number one on Apple, debuted number one on Apple Metal and Rock. So I'm really, I'm mentioning that every chance I get.
Oh, yeah. You wave that flag, man. That's incredible. I mean, listen, it's incredible to be, that nearing the end of 2023, sitting here in 2024, not just celebrating new Hed PE, but celebrating stuff like that, right? 30 years into it, you've got the number one album on the day it comes out on metal on Apple's charts. That's just got to be such an incredible feeling for you, man.
Well, yeah, dude, it's something I can just pin on the wall, because of course I'm lucky that, Five Finger Death Punch or Tool didn't release the same day, but hey, whatever, I'll accept it.
Hey, man, Hed PE succeeding, that is good for everybody, man. So listen,
yeah, bro.
I love that, dude. And yeah, you pin that on the wall for sure.
We're the underdog, so
MC underdog. That's right, man. You pin that on the wall for sure, man. So listen, if I'm correct here, right? The legend goes with Detox. You kind of started it in your private studio, right? Was that just you kind of keeping your head down working on the album?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, one of my writing partners lives in Amsterdam, right? How times have changed, because when Hed
right.
PE started, it was like, hey, I've got a song to play you. And they drive over to, from their apartment to mine and play it for me. These days, I can co-write and create with someone on the other, in fucking Eastern Europe. Excuse my language. But anyway, yeah, I had a lot to get out. Detox, by the way, was like, I'd have to say it was 2 years in the making,
Wow. Yeah.
I'd have to say that I don't want to say I took my time with it, but there were songs I reworked 4 or 5 times, and it just, I really, I wanted it to come out a certain way, and it definitely was inspired by what I went through during COVID, as a father and a husband and a provider and an artist,
And that kind of, I don't know if you want to call it meticulous kind of like focus on making sure it's perfect and going back and rewriting songs and taking that time. Is that how you've approached albums in the past, or is this kind of a new way to do it?
That's a good question. I think it's evolved to that. And I think, for me as kind of a self-loathing artist, I'll have things that I like initially and then go to sleep and come back and hate it. And then I'll have things that I wake up and love still. But, I'm definitely the type of guy who, it definitely has changed, though. To answer your question, Broke was a record, dude, where I would write the song the night before and then go in and record it, and then it would just stay that way on the record. See, I didn't have I have a studio in my bonus room. So, and technology has changed. So, when we started, in order to get good recordings, you'd have to go into a big studio, and pay hundreds of dollars an hour or whatever, or get a deal for $800 a day. I can't remember what it was, but technology has changed so much that I can wake up and come upstairs and start working, re-record vocals, scrap this, add that, you know what I mean? So,
well, and not just, that's evolved. Certainly the technology there, the freedom you have. And as you've said, kind of just even your own approach to maybe rewriting stuff, making sure it's perfect how you want it to be. But even so, it seems like, I don't know what you would say, like just your creative outlet has evolved too, right? So along with Detox, you're releasing animated videos for every song.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're creating this sort of growing cinematic universe called Detox Planet Earth. And so, along the path of creating this album, at what point did you think man, you know what? I want to have this visual extension of Detox too. Was that pretty early on, or when did that come around?
Well, that was, lucky for me, I have a good team that I'm working with, right? I've always been a visual type guy and a story oriented type guy, but the story and the visuals came from Kevin Zinger, who is one of the label guys, who I've worked with for years and has an amazing, vision and storytelling talent, so we put that to use. I read his story and I was like, oh, and I was fully on board with this will work great, and I had worked with some of the animators before. And one of them is responsible for the Detox, cover and that animation and that concept and all that. So I'm a huge fan of, everything visual, aren't we all, and anime and animation. And it's a dream come true to have the song animated in the way it is,
For sure. I mean, that's cool, man.
A record.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's not just a song. It's going to be every song from the album. So you really are creating this universe, this whole other experience for people to continue sort of exploring the album, which I love, man. I love having that opportunity to hear a song and then hear it differently because you get to see it and you get to see someone else's interpretation of it. And it sort of transforms how you listen to it, man. And it keeps you coming back. I love it.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of times when I write a song, I may have a concept behind it. I normally don't like to divulge my concept because I know people can take things different ways. You know what I mean? And I like people to take it in their own way,
Yeah, for sure, man. No, I get that. Well, it's even as we were talking about the Detox, debuting at #1 on Apple, on the metal charts. And what a great like milestone and accolade that is for you this many years into doing it. And even that though, like for you to say like, man, seeing these visuals come to life is a dream come true. That's got to feel good too as an artist. Like forget about the success or those like those industry accolades. Like just for yourself to sit back and say, man, seeing this music video come to life, seeing this, artist's interpretation of a song, that's got to feel so good.
Well, dude, yeah, I'm glad you said the word video because my guy Joshua Petrino, who is a filmmaker and an amazing creator, he lives in Jersey, right? And I was like, I need a video for Waiting. You should go check that out because the way it turned out, I really love it, but I wasn't there for the shooting of it or anything. But he and I, again, like technology, and we talked about it. But he came up with the storyline and everything, and I just love the way it came out because Hed PE is, even though we've got some like pretty silly, corny lyrics that are kind of like, provocative or whatever you want to call them, we've always wanted to kind of stand up for the little guy and equal rights across the board and all kinds of, just, hippie shit, like, or whatever. You know what I mean? Just like be kind to your neighbor type of stuff. Yeah. But I just think that the video gets that point across,
It definitely does, man. Yeah. And if listeners haven't checked it out, it's kind of it's a pretty powerful video, man. Like I remember watching it, like I was waiting for the band to come on and just, have this more stereotypical rock video. But yeah, you really did create this. Yeah, again, it's just another extension of the song and another chance to sort of hear it in a different way, see it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, was great to see that director's kind of interpretation and those actors, their interpretation of the music and all that, and it's separate from me and it's its own creative entity. It's very interesting.
So, I've mentioned this a few times and hopefully it's not making you feel old or anything, but man, 30 years of Hed PE, you've seen a lot, right? That's an understatement. You've seen a lot of bands come and go. You've seen a lot of changes in the industry. I know that's like just scratching the surface on what you've experienced as a musician, as an artist. But it also seems like some of the trends, and I even hate using that word, but some of the things that were popular decades ago, they're coming back around in popularity, and you're laughing and I see it, man, with you going on tour with Nonpoint and you announcing that show with Taproot. I think that's one of the most obvious is the fact that people are talking about new metal again. And largely it's in a positive light. I think it's in a very positive, supportive way. Did you ever care about being labeled like that in the early 2000s and the late 90s? Like, what was that like for you? And then fast forward to today, where new metal is kind of coming back and here you are celebrating new music, hitting the road.
Well, it's a great question, brother. And I'll tell you, in my memory, I don't remember the phrase or the name being new metal being coined while in our heyday. I feel like it came after. But then I could be, don't quote me, you might could tell me, were they already calling it new metal right when it was going on?
It's so hard to tell, right? Because here we are, 20, 25
I know
grunge
was called grunge. Grunge was grunge while it was happening.
Yeah. I think so, man. I think in the early 2000s, man, I think that was a phrase that people were using to describe, this type of music, yeah.
Okay, but definitely when we started, so
right in the mid 90s, right? So then that's a totally different story, right?
When we started, there was no name for it, right? So so then it was called that. So I would, in answer to a part of your question, it was never a concern, right? We were just like influenced by Nine Inch in the 90s, Nine Inch Nails, Dr. Dre, the things that were banging back then, Rage Against the Machine even, and stuff like that. We were influenced by Korn as well, because like I was watching Korn and the Deftones before they got signed, because we were in Huntington Beach in Southern California. So they were influences on us as well as like 311, even though you may not hear it when we play, but those were the bands we loved, But right after that, it was like emo came in and kind of was changed styles in the same way fashion does,
Sure, yeah.
It just changes. And at that time, bro, it was like new metal was really frowned upon. You know?
Yeah. It's like it's a dirty word, or
wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, you didn't want to be called that. You didn't want to be labeled that, or at least from the outsider's perspective, like that was like a joke of a genre, or whatever you want to whatever you want to say. But here we are, like just like fashion too, right? Years later, decades later, it comes around full circle. Now everybody's excited about it and behind it. And I don't know. I sit back. You can roll your eyes at it, or you can just be grateful for it. I love seeing the support for it, man.
Yeah, it's good for me. Yeah. And I heard the one kid from Avenged Sevenfold saying that he was saying how new metal was kind of like a bad word when they were coming up, but how he liked Hed PE and this and that. You've got a few different, like, I've had different like deathcore, metalcore guys going, yeah, we like Hed PE, and it's a surprise. I'm humbled, and it's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, we've had Jacoby Shaddix on the show a few times, and one of the times we were having this conversation, and he was saying kind of like in the heat of the moment, yeah, they hated that, having that kind of genre thrown on them, and that probably would have been true for any name, right? Any label, they wanted to do their own music, but today they love it, man. They love, like, if that's how people connect with them, because they follow this genre or kind of fell in that rabbit hole, they're all in on it, and I think that's the way to do it.
Totally, dude. But I'm an old geezer, right? So like I remember when hair metal went away and was taken over by like Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and what was the band? Even Flow.
Yeah, Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam, right. So like, dude, I think that was more devastating because in a way, like hair metal was just like an absolute no. Like all my long haired friends were cutting their hair and everything back then,
That's wild, man. Well, I don't know if that's gonna come back. I haven't seen that quite come back. I don't know. You still see kind of this resurgence of like classic rock sounding bands. So maybe there'll be a moment for hair metal.
Doesn't time kind of does like spirals, like fashion, right? Like things come back with a twist.
That's right, man. That's right. Jahred Gomes of Hed PE, thank you so much for hanging tonight, man. Congrats on the release of your latest record, Detox. Congrats on what is already a busy 2024. I get the feeling you're never going to slow down. We've got a lot of the dates, the tour schedules on the Loudwire app. You can always stay caught up on everything in Hed PE's world at headplanetearth.com. That's Hed, H-E-D. And hopefully we can hang again soon, man. It was really great chatting and catching up.
Where are you broadcasting from?
So I'm based in Kansas City, man. We broadcast all over the country, but I'm based right in the middle of the country.
Yeah, man. It was a pleasure talking to you, man. And let everyone know that I do a stream on Friday nights. It's on YouTube and Facebook. And I appreciate your time, bro. It's really gracious of you to have me on.
Awesome, brother. Well, maybe, hopefully I could catch you on the road this year, and we can hang out, man.
All right, brother. Peace. Have a good night.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.